to the Prophecy Club. We're going to continue listening to Bill Schnoebelen today talk about mind-controlled gun confiscation. But before we do, you should know that our summer blowout is going to end at the end of August, as in just a few weeks from now. And you have to call 785-266-1112 to place your order. Frankly, we hadn't figured out a way to let you check through over 300 DVDs and see which ones you want on the website. So what you have to do to take advantage of this offer is first go to prophecyclub.com. You probably want to download our free catalog, and you're probably going to spend some good time flipping through that, reading about all the different DVDs, and then you make your selection. Now, it's 50 DVDs for $250. That's $5 each. They're normally $30. 25 for $160. That's $640 each. 15 for $120. That's $8 each. 10 for $100, that's 10 obviously, 6 for $70, 4 for $50, and 2 for $30. But it's the best deal we ever have every year to get the DVDs. Now, yes, we do have watchprophecyclub.com. That is by far the best deal we have or ever will offer. $20 a month, and you can watch over 300 DVDs anytime you want to. Best deal is $200 a year. However, you and I also understand that the day is going to come when the internet is going to be tied into the mark of the beast, and we Christians will not have access to it. It's all part of the new financial system they're setting up. So having the DVD is important too. And this is probably going to be the last year that we offer this extreme summer blowout. So my suggestion would be that you go to prophecyclub.com, download the catalog, flip through that, decide which selection you want to get, then you call 785-266-1112 and place your order for DVDs, and we'll get them right out to you. 785-266-1112, prophecyclub.com. And you can also look at the DVDs right there at prophecyclub.com, which, speaking of that, we've just got a new upgrade to our bookstore we're very excited about. It looks very nice. So, again, go check out prophecyclub.com, then call us 785-266-1112, as this is probably going to be the last year that we make this extreme summer blowout offer. Okay, so on to what we're going to do today. We're going to continue listening to Mind-Controlled Gun Confiscation. This was recorded in 2007 by Bill Schnoebelen, and he talks about how mind control began, how they use pain, drugs, and demons to split the mind, the purpose of mind control, the latest techniques, wireless control. Then he also updates it with a 2015 DVD, which we probably won't get in today, but it's part of the offer. So you actually get 2 DVDs valued at $60, $30 each, but we're making both of them available today at prophecyclub.com for a gift of $30. $30 at prophecyclub.com. Best deal is watchprophecyclub.com. $20 a month, $200 a year. Let's go listen to Bill Schnoebelen in Mind-Controlled Gun Confiscation.
Now, when you have someone who has been scientifically abused like MK Ultra, you can have a whole bunch of personalities. I'm going to tell you a heartbreaking true story. We had a lady we saw, and raised in a good Christian home. And anytime when she was 5 or 6 years old, anytime she misbehaved, they would strip off all her clothes, tie her in her little rocking chair, and beat her black and blue with rubber hoses. Now, can you imagine such a thing? And this was such a horrible experience for this little girl, she would just go away. And a little boy would take her place. And that was her first alter personality. And what's funny is we have seen this dynamic over and over again. Once something like that happens, it's like all of a sudden there's like a psychic target on the back of this individual saying, abuse me, hurt me. Because when she was 12 years old, she was raped. That caused her to go into a mental hospital. Her parents threw her in the loony bin. There she was raped by her psychiatrist. When she got out of high school, graduated summa cum laude, she went into the U.S. Army just to get away from her horrible family. Her DI, her drill instructor, abused her and raped her. Then she married a sergeant in the Army. She was a corporal, and he beat the living daylights out of her every chance he got. And then at that point, we got her as a client. And what was amazing about her is that she had little people inside of her for each one of these traumas. She had a 5-year-old, she had a 12-year-old, she had a 16-year-old, she had a 20-year-old, and each one of those little people had all of these issues. So that is how this works. So horrible abuse is scientifically applied to young children or even adults. Done often enough, it will create these parts. The original person, the birth person, is called the core personality. And these parts or alters exist as distinct entities within the person's subconscious. And you can have entire groups of parts. You can have families of parts. You can even have villages of parts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when Monarch was when my MK Ultra was exposed by the press, it was driven underground and became the Monarch program. Now, actually, there are 148 separate programs underneath the Monarch umbrella, if you will. Two of the most important are Operation Spellbinder, and notice this carefully. Operation Spellbinder was training people as sleeper assassins that kill someone and then self-destruct. Now, what's a sleeper assassin? That's again kind of like Hassani Saban as moles. It's someone who might exist in a community or an organization or whatever for years. And then all of a sudden, one day, he gets a phone call, he gets a signal, something happens, he goes and gets his gun, shoots someone or several someones, and then eats a bullet and kills himself. Now, another example, and I think that's, by the way, that's very significant in light of our discussion tonight. Another important program was Project Offense. This is developing high-level occult power in people through mind control, torture, technology, and black magic. Now, this stuff is amazing, how bizarre it can get. Because I have a colleague, for example, and he thought he was in a branch of the military. He served for 9 years, he thought, as a radar technician. I won't say what branch of the service, but actually, they took him and brainwashed him, and through torture and the implanting of a chip, they built up within him amazing psychic powers. They discovered that he had an aptitude for it by some of the tests that they gave him when he was first enlisted. You know, like they made him go through Zener cards. I don't know if you know what Zener cards are, but that's what you see that they test people for ESP with. And then they basically put this chip in the part of his brain that they believe controls psychic powers. They fill his brain full of demons scientifically, did torture, mind control on him, and trained him to be a psychic assassin. In other words, a remote viewer who could find someone anywhere in the world just by looking at their picture and killing them within a minute. And he was good. He was very good. He says he thinks he killed at least 15 people while in the service of the government. And the bizarre thing is, this is why I know that this whole thing about searching for Osama bin Laden is bogus. Because all this, and he said there were over a dozen guys just like him in the service. And all they needed was a photo. You get a photo of Osama bin Laden and show it to one of these guys, Osama bin Laden is history within 5 minutes. Doesn't matter what cave he's hiding in, what penthouse he's hiding in, whatever the case might be. He's dead. And these guys have done it many times. So obviously they're not really trying to kill him or he'd be dead. Anyway, the way this guy got out of it and figured out what was going on is he finally got out of the service. He married a lady and she was a counselor, and she started noticing he had all this rage and anger flying out of him just inappropriately. So she started working with him and all this stuff started coming out, and she got him set free with the power of Yeshua. And now he's a minister himself. So hallelujah. Anyway, that's an example of Project Often, of creating through black magic and technology people with extraordinary psychic abilities. Now, it's important to understand there are actually 2 generations of this now. If you're a baby boomer like me and you're a mind control person, you have been worked on by MK Ultra. But if you're Gen X or beyond, you've been worked on by Monarch. And we have ministered to literally hundreds of these people, and Yeshua has set them gloriously free. Hallelujah. Okay, now in Monarch, there are 5 broad levels of programming. There's the alpha level, which is done to everybody. It's the most common, results in high-level memory, superhuman strength, and visual acuity. In other words, these people have a virtually photographic memory. They, very, very strong, 2 or 3 times normal strength, and incredible eyesight. Like we knew one guy, and he could literally sit where I'm sitting and look all the way to the rear of the room and read the fine print on a newspaper. He was tested as having 28 vision. In other words, 20 feet away, it looked to him like it was 8 feet. That's basically the vision of a hawk. Now, you might ask, how is this superhuman strength possible? Well, it's very simple, adrenaline. I mean, I'm sure you've all heard stories, and many of them are true, of the little old farmer lady, the husband rolls over on a tractor, he's pinned under the tractor, the little old lady who weighs 90 pounds soaking weight comes running out, picks up this whole tractor off her husband and drags her husband to safety. That kind of thing happens. It happens a lot because the human mind, if you pump enough adrenaline into your bloodstream, you can be as strong as an ox. Seriously. Now, of course, it really burns out your nervous system. You don't want to do too much of that, or it's like putting sand in the gears of your physiology. But they don't care. These people who do this don't care. And of course, in terms of memory, well, I had a photographic memory before I started smoking funny Mexican cigarettes, and many people do. So, all of this stuff is within reach. But you've got to understand, I heard one person say it like this. He said, it's like we can take the brain and treat it like a graphic equalizer, where we can move these little slider things up and down. We can modulate the individual hormones. We can do this, we can do that. And we can basically make anybody do anything we want, just with chemicals, with neurochemicals in the brain. And because these mind control survivors, now listen to me carefully, they have control to a degree of their autonomic nervous system. They're just like, you may have heard these stories of these yogis over in India that can slow or stop their heartbeat. There was one fellow over there who was buried underground for 3 years. He was alive, and he came out of the ground alive. He slowed his heartbeat and his respiration to such a degree that he only took a breath every day, 1 breath, and he was able to stay. Now that's demonic, but that's what runs this stuff, is demonic. The same demonic stuff that enables a yogi to do that over in India is the same stuff that makes these people be able to control subtle aspects of their brain, physiology, their hormones, etc., etc. Speaking of hormones, moving on to the next kind of monarch person, we have the beta level. And these are mostly female, and they're basically sex slaves. These women, there are a few men, but mostly women, and they're basically trained to be totally without any sexual mores. They're essentially mind control prostitutes, and they're used in espionage, because quite often in espionage, secrets are traded for sexual favors. But it's also alleged by several of these survivors that they're also used as sex toys for the leaders of our nation. So, anyway, then we have the Delta level. Delta level of programming is special military training. We were talking about controlling the autonomic nervous system. Well, these guys can stop blood flow. If they get shot, they can make the blood stop flowing just with a matter of seconds. Pain reduction, wound healing. You can literally shoot these guys in the kneecap and they won't feel it. They'll keep coming after you. You shoot them in the arm, they don't feel it. You shoot them in the heart, they'll keep coming. They'll drop dead after a couple of minutes, but by then you're dead. And that again is the super soldier. Then you have the theta level of programming. This is to enhance psychic abilities. I already talked about that. Finally, we have the omega level of programming. This is self-destruct. And people ask all the time, can you really force someone to kill themselves with this kind of stuff? Because you always hear this, oh, you can't hypnotize somebody to do something that's against their normal mores or standards. And that's true, but this is so far beyond hypnosis. It's not even close. And I'll tell you a true story. A colleague of ours was working with a woman who was a survivor of Monarch. And believe it or not, they were getting real close to the core personality. You know what happened? All of a sudden, she started bleeding out of her ears. She started bleeding out of her eyes, bleeding out of her mouth, bleeding out of her nose. Her brain was hemorrhaging. There was a program inside of her that kicked on that was literally causing her brain to explode. This man knew what to do. He prayed. He cast out the deaf and dumb spirit. The whole thing stopped. They got the lady set free. Just like that. That's how powerful this stuff is. So obviously, if they can make a person literally blow up their brain by remote control, they can certainly make someone put a gun in their mouth and pull the trigger. Okay. Now, just when you thought things couldn't get worse, they do. We have DARPA getting involved. You've all heard of DARPA, the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Their most famous creation was the internet. They created the internet, not Al Gore. And they are now, or not now, 10 years ago, they began working on brain-machine interface and the MMEA, which stands for the Multiple Microelectrode Array. This is pretty scary stuff. This is mind control for the new millennium. MMEA chips, these are chips. They can intercept and record from biological tissue. In other words, they can send and receive signals to your neurophysiology. They can make you feel things, and some people say they can even make you think things. They can know what you're feeling. They can know what you're thinking if you have one of these chips in you. It is technically possible to send a signal from an RF transmitter to a given individual with an implanted, to give an individual with an implanted MMEA chips strong sensations of pleasure or pain. The science behind this is technology that can directly read thoughts from the brain and also put thoughts in. The leading scientist behind this is a Professor Kevin Warwick, who's at a university over in the United Kingdom. And this guy is famous because he's the first man to have a chip similar to this implanted in his body, way back in 1996. And he put one in himself and one in his family and one in his wife. And the funny thing about this is he'll walk into his house, he's got this chip. He walks into his house, the door opens for him automatically. It recognizes him. His whole house is wired high-level computers. He walks inside, the lights adjust to the level of light that he likes. His favorite music starts playing on the stereo. The temperature adjusts itself to the temperature he likes. He walks from room to room, and all of this follows him from room to room. Not only that, he can go like this and touch his arm, and his wife feels it because she also has a chip. She can feel what he feels. Now, that would be an interesting thing in a marriage, wouldn't it? It might be a wonderful thing and it might be not so wonderful. And I want you all to remember Schnoebelen's principle of black science. If you haven't read my book, Space Invaders, you'll find out what that is. Black science is the truth that whatever you see out there right now on the Discovery Channel or Popular Science Magazine or Scientific American is actually 25 years out of date compared to what the government really knows how to do. Because they're years ahead of that. And I'll give you a true example. When my wife, we were only married a couple of years. This is back in 1975, my friends. She was working in the University of Wisconsin Medical College. And the division she was in, they were cloning people. This was 30 years ago. They had all like livers, kidneys, hearts for all the high-level people and rich people in the state of Wisconsin, right sitting there in cryogenic freeze. So if they ever needed a heart transplant or a liver transplant or whatever, there they were. And they had full-size human bodies, also grown. So someday some evil person might actually clone someone. Yeah, right. They've been doing it for 30 years. And just about anything you can think of, that's the way it is. Like, everybody goes, oh, gee whiz, we have flat plasma panel TVs. They had them back in the 50s. Seriously. I saw one. Well, 60s. Stuff like that. Computers the size of a cigarette package. We think, oh, wow, it's great. We got these Palm Pilots or iPods or, Windows Mobile or whatever the heck your current poison is. Well, hey, they had those back in the 60s because I actually saw one. So realize that if they're admitting this stuff exists, they got something much worse they're actually using. Okay, The other thing you got to watch for is the wireless cloud. Doesn't that sound like a science fiction movie? The wireless cloud is coming. Woo! Athens, Georgia was the first. Your city probably has one. What it is, it's a thing where they have the whole downtown wired so you can have Wi-Fi on your laptop wherever you go. If you're a computer nerd, it's wonderful. You can sit in the park, have lunch, enjoy the birdies, and check your email all at the same time. And they're saying very soon every major city will be under one gigantic wireless cloud, not just the downtown, but the whole city. But here's the problem. Imagine how a wireless cloud could affect a city full of people with these MMEA chips. Let's say, for example, you were part of a city that decided, even though you were dumb enough to get these chips put into you, that we don't want to be a part of the New World Order anymore. All they'd have to do is broadcast a signal to this wireless cloud and put everybody in the entire city to sleep, just like that. Or you could give everybody in the city bone-grinding pain, horrible pain, pain that makes kidney stones look like a walk in the park. This carries forward the creepy work of Dr. Jose Delgado. I don't know if any of you have heard of him, but he was doing stuff like this back in the 1960s, but without the wireless cloud. Back then, he created this very, by today's standards, clunky electronic electrode thing and jammed it into the brain of a bull. And it was hooked up to this big computer. Back then, computers were the size of, like a room. And basically, he would get the bull angry, pawing the ground, the whole bit, ready to charge, and then he'd push a button. And this electrode would send an impulse into the bull's brain, and all of a sudden the bull would get all happy and friendly, just like that in a couple of seconds. Now you think that's weird. This was in 1969. A couple years later, he was after rats. Now let me explain something to you. The mammalian brain at its primitive level is not much different between you and a rat. The primitive part of the brain, what makes us human, is this part of our brain. I tell people that's why your dog doesn't have this. Because your dog doesn't have the frontal lobes that you have, you can't sit down and play chess with him. So, the primitive part of the brain, where the pleasure pain centers are, the autonomic nervous system, what in our brain we call it the medulla oblongata, that area of the brain is pretty much the same in all mammals. So he put an electrode into a mouse, or a rat, I forget which, and he had determined through research where the pleasure center of the mouse was. And by giving a jolt to the mouse through this electrode, he could give the mouse an orgasm, just like that. Now, here's what he did. And I tell you, you gotta be sick to do these kind of experiments on some poor animal. But anyway, he set up these two levers in the rat's cage. One lever, you'd push it, and the rat would get his food. His little rat chow or whatever it is they feed rats in laboratories. And the other one, if he pushed that button, he'd get an orgasm instantly. And he wanted to see what the rat would do. Guess what the rat did? Bzz, 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 all day. Bzz, bzz, bzz. Finally, the rat dropped dead of exhaustion. Seriously. He never ate. That's all he would do all day. He probably got carpal tunnel syndrome too. Anyway, this is a statement from this guy. He says, man does not have the right to develop his own mind. We must electrically control everyone's brain. Someday armies and generals will be controlled by the electric stimulation of the brain. Now, imagine this. I already taught about this, but you could have entire towns be controlled with these chips. Now, here's the deal. The benefits of these things are inarguable, and that's what they're using to sell this stuff. For example, if you're paralyzed, they can put a chip back here and give you bionic legs, exoskeleton legs, and you could run faster. You could be like Steve Austin, the $6 million man, or you could take a blind person and put one of these around their optic nerve, put little tiny cameras on on a pair of glasses, and they could see better than you and I. They could see into the infrared, ultraviolet spectrum, the whole bit. But we need to remember, DARPA is funding this, and DARPA is part of Homeland Security now. They're talking about Matrix type stuff. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie The Matrix. They're saying, wouldn't it be great if you could just, and they don't even need to have the jack thing that they had in the Matrix films. That's primitive. Now they can send it by Wi-Fi. They could download an entire college course into your brain in a matter of minutes. They could download the entire King James Bible into your brain in less than 5 minutes. They could teach you how to do anything in a matter of minutes. This would be really cool. Yeah. You know, and that's how they're going to sell it. And there's going to be a lot of these young people that don't know the Bible, that aren't very wise yet, that are going to think this is great. They could forget the holodeck that's on the Star Trek television show. You could create video games where you're inside of the game and you see everything around you and it's real. Think about it. There's a lot of people that would want to do this. In fact, it's getting real big with the New Age movement. There is a new kid on the block with the New Age movement. It's called techno-spirituality. You can go to a website, for example, it's called technical-jesus.com, and learn about Christian transhumanism. Now, what, you might ask, is that? Well, it's the idea that by gradually replacing our defective biological systems with wonderful computer chips, we can eliminate sin. We can transcend. We can become enlightened. And all sin will be eliminated from our lives. And the ultimate goal here, these people say, is to have everyone in the world have one of these chips. And by the way, that's what one looks like. It's sitting there on the edge of someone's finger. It's about the size of a Tic Tac. And it has 100 tiny antenna arrays on it. And what they want is a wetware internet. You know what that means? That means everyone on the planet would be hooked up to each other. And we'd all know each other's thoughts. We'd all be one. And that's what they call convergence. And that, they believe, will save the planet. And what it means is we'll all become like the Borg, you know. But a lot of these people are signing up for this stuff for spiritual reasons, because they're spiritually starving to death and they think this is the solution. The bottom line,
I'm going to interrupt the broadcast right there. In 2017, I memorized the book of Revelation just as a simple project. Surprisingly, I began to receive information on 30 revelations and 2 visions beyond what is found in the Bible. God showed me a secret door, which is based upon a single word found in Revelation and Leviticus, linking the feasts to the prophecies. When linked, a person enters into an understanding of Bible prophecy not previously known. Even though I've been in the world of Bible prophecy for 40 years, frankly, I did not know anything of what is in this book. One prophetic word described it this way: there is a lock that I have put over a word in the book of Revelation that I'm going to open to you. It will turn so many books written on the end-time message into obsolete books. That's this book. Topics are: Jesus returns on what feast? The secret of the feasts. Who are the 2 witnesses? What is the morning star? The judgment seat explained. The great white throne explained. The nations explained. What is the shout? And the parables explained. Seals, trumpets, and vials go in what order? 2 amazing prophecy charts on the back flap, 12 inches by 9 inches. Imagine a book on prophecy that brings a fresh, new, accurate perspective. I don't want you to get 1 book for $20. I want you to get 5 books for $30 or 10 for $55. It's called The Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy, available at prophecyclub.com. The Secret Door to Understand Bible Prophecy. 1 for $20. No, don't do that. You want to get 5 for $30 or the best deal, 10 for $55. prophecyclub.com.